Yet only the next night she had walked that path toward the Talbots, and been shot. My mind went back to Friday. It was on Friday night over the telephone that I had roused her from a heavy dope sleep with the word that there was someone on the roof, a man, apparently searching it with great care and some risk. Who was it, and what was he looking for? One thing was certain, he was capable of quick action, for in the interval between the ringing of the telephone bell and Margaret's appearance in the cedar room with her father's revolver, he had not only escaped. He had closed the trapdoor and replaced the ladder. Perhaps I was over-suspicious as I looked back, but it did not ring entirely true, that story of Margaret's as she had told it to me on Saturday morning. Why had this unknown, escaping somehow through a darkened house, not only managed to do that, but also to replace the trap and ladder? I looked out at the Lancaster house. It might have been possible to climb from one of the third-floor windows to the roof, but I doubted it. Then again, Margaret had asked me not to speak about it. The more I thought over that, the stranger it seemed, unless at that time Margaret suspected Emily of her mother's murder. Was the man on the roof by any chance searching for the missing money? Or perhaps for the blood-stained garments of the killer for which the police had looked without result? They had to be somewhere, those clothes. There had been no chance for Emily, providing she was guilty, to have got rid of them. But my mind kept going about in a circle, for after all Miss Emily herself had been killed only 2 nights later, and now even Holmes was gone. I tried putting some of this down. I even tried repeating the chronology of that previous Thursday, for it was Mrs. Lancaster's murder, I knew, that had started the entire chain. Yet that day had varied little from any other day, up to the time of the death. It was entirely usual for Lydia Talbot to carry Mrs. Lancaster some delicacy for her tray, and Lydia had left at 2:30. At 3:30 Mr. Lancaster and Mrs. Talbot had gone. He had returned but under oath had stated that he had gone directly out again. At 3:45 Emily reported her mother asleep, and at 4 o'clock Jim Wellington had found her dead. When in all that closely checked time had the murderer, with or without a key to the house, been able to enter, kill and depart without discovery? And whom had mother suspected of being both capable and able to do such a thing? I sat back and thought about that, about that day when Mother, having read in the paper that the gold was missing, had instantly sent for Mrs. Talbot to apologize to her. Apology comes hard to Mother, and this apology seemed to have been for something she had thought rather than said. So far as I knew, she had said nothing. What had she thought? That Mrs. Talbot, after being a good friend and a kindly neighbor for years, had somehow re-entered that house after Mr. Lancaster went for his walk, and killed a woman who was not only helpless, but who was related to her by marriage? She could have done it. It came to me almost with a shock that she could have done it easily. Nobody had checked on her movements after she left the house. Even Miss Lydia was out and did not return until around 5 o'clock. As for motive, why demand one of a woman who was as definitely eccentric as she was? Or there might be one, a part of that hidden story to which Mother had now and then referred, something out of the past of which I had never heard, some ancient enmity carried secretly for years. I sat back in my chair and tried to face that possibility. It was not credible, of course, but it is never credible that people willfully commit savage and brutal crimes. And as I sat there, I realized that there was more than one point to support my suspicion. The shooting of Emily with what was apparently George Talbot's automatic was only one of them. I had remembered suddenly that there was a vine of poison ivy near the Talbot stable. I sat then with my notes before me, staring incredulously out into the Lancasters' sunny garden. Eben was cutting the grass again, and save for the notes on my lap, it might have been the same Thursday afternoon the week before, when the Lancasters' side door had opened, and Miss Emily had run out screaming and fallen flat on the newly cut lawn. As I looked, I saw Jenny come out the side door and make a gesture to Eben. He stopped his mower at once, and something in the two attitudes told me that we had another death, that old Mr. Lancaster had drawn his last uneasy breath. Chapter 35. The police in the meantime were subjecting Mrs. McMullen to a severe grilling. Herbert Dean was there also, and it is his account which I am using. They had found her in bed in a small hot back bedroom on an upper floor. She looked ill, he said. She had deep circles under her eyes, and she had evidently been crying. So pitiful an object was she that they tried being gentle with her, but at that she grew defiant and they had finally to change their tactics. It was after that she admitted she had known Holmes well, but she maintained stoutly that she had never suspected the Merriam woman's identity, or that the stolen money might have been in the trunk. Why should I? She demanded. And if it comes to that, why would I go to that hall girl this morning and tell her all I did, if I'd any idea of it? So far as I can see, all I had to do was to keep my mouth shut, and I was all right. But you knew him pretty well? Oh, I knew him all right. Not so well as you may think, but one of my daughters brought him here once or twice. I don't know that I'd ever mentioned the Merriam woman to him at all, or her trunk either. How did you explain his bringing you that word about it, if you knew he was the hall's driver? I guess I might as well tell you, she said, looking around at that ring of determined faces. He'd been bootlegging a bit. Not much, but now and then, and so he knew a good many people,